ASP Nanka Bruce, who had been the head of security at the presidency under the previous administration, was set upon by a member of these so-called Delta forces. Mr. Speaker, what was the response?
Honorable member, please. I thought that we've gone beyond that. What we're now looking at, we have acknowledged all that in earlier statements. Only the details were not given, but it is something that we all have acknowledged. We have experienced them. So we are now looking for the way forward.
Mr. Speaker, thanks for the guidance, but it was necessary to record these events, to place the discussion in proper context, because I listened to my friend and brother, the Honorable Oponkroma, and others who spoke in a manner that suggested that this is a recent phenomenon. Mr. Speaker, I have a few, Mr. Speaker, I have a few proposals of my own. What I believe is the cause of these problems is that whereas we have done relatively well in the management of our elections, at the very least, we've had 4 peaceful transfers of power. So we have got that right. What we have failed to do is to get the immediate post-elections period processes right. It does appear that right after elections, right after the winner is declared, our security agencies go to sleep. They effectively collapse and therefore are unable to deal with these miscreants, some of whom act this way in retribution against others who they perceive to have wronged them in the past. Mr. Speaker, it does appear that our Presidential Transition Act requires further amendment to strengthen the hands of state agencies to deal more effectively with the immediate post-elections period. Mr. Speaker, I have wondered why it is not possible for the winner of the elections to take over power immediately. We do know that in the United Kingdom, for instance, a day after a new prime minister is elected, he takes over Downing Street. So there is literally no gap that will be filled by miscreants and persons who are minded to engage in lawlessness. I think that we can go on that tangent and ensure that the transition is quicker, is swifter, and more seamless than it is at this particular time. We run a patronage system. All of us would appreciate that. So sometimes the security agencies are frozen into inaction because they are unsure, they are uncertain about what fate awaits them if they were to move against persons who are perceived to belong to the party that has won the elections. And that is why sometimes these sort of things happen. But we cannot resolve this problem without taking a holistic view, without appreciating that it runs deeper than merely citing recent instances to buttress one's argument. So I associate with the position taken by the majority leader. But let us broaden the discussion. It is minority leader, your party, minority leader. But let us broaden the discussion. Let us realize that the problem runs much deeper than we are appreciating at the moment. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me this contribution.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this very important matter on the floor. And I want to thank the minority leader for bringing this up. Mr. Speaker, when countries have problems, have challenges, or have some mischiefs that they have to cure, we are required to brainstorm, to work together, to seek solutions to those problems. Mr. Speaker, and a case in point is the passage of the Transition Act which was a response to the chaotic nature of the fourth Republican transitions, which seems to have largely assisted in the smooth transition from one government to the other. The Presidential Office Act is yet another example. And that is why I believe that your admonishment and the call that we should focus on solutions and prefer suggestions to be able to deal with this matter is absolutely important. Mr. Speaker, the proposal that a resolution be sent from this House to the executive expressing the concern of this House and making the point that Parliament takes a dim view of what is happening in our country and further calling for a public inquiry into how these disturbances occurred during coalitions and the chaos we are witnessing in our country. Mr. Speaker, is one that I support, and it's one that I think we should examine very seriously. That this House, this Parliament, an arm of government, the legislature, sends a resolution to the executive expressing the House's deep concern about what is happening and calling for a public inquiry into all these acts of violence which are taking place in this country. Mr. Speaker, they talk about the length of transitions. Mr. Speaker, in the United States, elections are held on 4th November. Inauguration takes place on January 20th. Some 2 months plus. That is their transitional period. In Ghana, we have a 1-month transition. And yet, they do not, perhaps with the exception of the infamous 2021 transition, they do not have such chaos and such violence characterize their transitions. And so that, for me, is not the reason for what is going on. But, Mr. Speaker, there's another erroneous impression which has been created. Yes, there has been acts of violence perpetuated against members of the SWAL government and members of the NPP. But, Mr. Speaker, what is even more disturbing is the intra-government battles, and I say violent battles. Mr. Speaker, that is more disturbing. An NPP member has been pounced upon, he's been assaulted, he's been beaten, an NPP former minister has been molested. That is bad enough. But, Mr. Speaker, the situation where the President of the Republic makes an appointment to an important institution or state and political party tax hooligans and actors take siege of that institution and says,
Honorable Member, I don't know whether you were around. We have acknowledged these things, and you know that it's not just happening only today. It has happened before. So let's be honest and then look at the way forward. Let's look at the way forward.
Mr. Speaker, I perfectly agree with you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
I really take your wisdom. I perfectly agree with you. Mr. Speaker, I'm just contextualizing the matter and situating it in a context where we can have, Mr. Speaker, where we can have a bipartisan buy-in. Mr. Speaker, because if you listen carefully, the impression that is created is that, look, when the MPP took office in 2017, violence was meted out onto NDC members. And indeed, Mr. Speaker, that may be the case. And that since the NDC has been in office, a certain revenge, and I heard that from the other side. But I'm saying that actually for me is not even the issue. That is not the issue. That we all agree. But what is more of a fundamental problem and challenge, which is why, Mr. Speaker, you are right, that we should seek solutions and come up with suggestions in dealing with this matter. And I'm saying that this matter is even gotten to the point where the sitting president is being threatened as we speak today. Yes. At the youth today. Mr. Speaker, at the youth today at the youth Employment Authority. Two gentlemen appeared at the headquarters of the Youth Employment Authority. Mr. Speaker, both of them holding appointment letters from Jubilee House, and both of them with their tax. And there was a clash at the Youth Employment Authority today, and the president was being threatened. And so, Mr. Speaker, what I have to say is that this call by Right Honourable Speaker, and the minority leader, supported by the majority side, that we need to deal with this matter. Mr. Speaker, I want to make some recommendations. The first recommendation I want to make, Mr. Speaker, that this matter is a purely, in all forms and shape, squarely a law and order matter. Mr. Speaker, it's a law and order matter. If somebody goes to pounce on Mr. Boateng at Jubilee Lounge and assault him, Mr. Speaker, you don't have to expand the Transitional Act in order to deal with it. It's assault. It's a crime under the criminal code of our country. The police must take charge of it and deal with it. Mr. Speaker, when people go to seize the Ghana Revenue Authority headquarters and threatens that they will not allow the president's appointee to take office, it's a law and order issue. Mr. Speaker, when people go to National Communications Authority and lay siege on National Communications Authority, it's a law and order issue. Mr. Speaker, when party tax and hoodlums actually seize the weapon of a military officer, they have the audacity and the effrontery to seize the weapon of a soldier. Mr. Speaker, it's a law and order issue. Yes. And so Mr. Speaker is asking for solutions. And I welcome that, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for that request. Mr. Speaker, the proposal and the suggestion we are making from this side of the House is that this should be construed by all intents and purposes as a law and order issue, and the Inspector General of Police, and the Ghana Police Service, and the President of the Republic, who is the chief custodian of law and order, should step in and bring law and order into our country. Just because, look, if we don't deal with this matter, I'm not a prophet of doom, but it's going to get worse. Because once the government gets fully established, and there are no other offices for party tax to take over, Mr. Speaker, all of us, and by that I mean all of us in this house. Mr. Speaker, if you allow me, to be blunt, the Right Honourable Speaker himself, members of this House, members of the religious community, civil society members, members of the media, ordinary citizens, my good friend A+, and all of us in this House, and all of us in Ghana, Mr. Speaker, we will all be at risk. Mr. Speaker, I followed your career very closely. And you have been an advocate of discipline and law and order. And you know too well, Mr. Speaker, that just as President Rawlings said to them, that when you have a stove, and one person puts his hand on the stove, and it burns him, and another puts his hand on the same stove, and it doesn't burn him, then there's a breakdown of law and order. So let me conclude. Let me conclude by reiterating the call that this House sends a resolution to the executive, and in that resolution we should call for a public inquiry into the circumstances under which on the 9th of 7th December through 8th to the 9th to the 10th after Ghanaians have gone and cast their vote, exercised their civil responsibility by casting their vote in peace and tranquility, when it came to collation, the Electoral Commission came under siege. At gunpoint, declarations were made, and this has traveled all the way to this point, and Ablakwa is still outstanding, and this has traveled up to this point. That public inquiry should unravel and establish the circumstances which has led to this level of anarchy. And in conclusion, in that resolution, we should call on the president, who is the chief custodian of law and order, Mr. Speaker, to take charge of law and order in this country. President Mahama should take charge of law and order in this country. The number one duty of a president, the number one duty and responsibility, Mr. Speaker, respectfully, of a president is to ensure that there is law and order. Today, he has a minister for interior. He has a minister for defense. The security apparatus has been put in place. Mr. Speaker, in all humility and modesty, and respectfully, I conclude by saying, Mr. President, take charge of law and order. Take charge. Take charge.
Yes, please. Majority Leader. Majority Leader.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, the matters that we are discussing in this chamber today are very grave and serious matters. Mr. Speaker, I'm not a Christian, but some biblical verses sometimes jump at you, such as the one that you find in Galatians
Honorable Majority
6,
Leader,
7.
Honorable Majority Leader, please take your seat. Honorable members, just give me 5 minutes suspension of sitting. I'll just attend to something and be back myself to preside over this. 5 minutes only.
Constitutional Review Committee members designate by the President. Before I invite the President to administer the oaths, let me present the members of the Constitutional Review Committee designate. Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh, if you may rise, please, sir. Thank you. Chair of the committee, Justice Sophia Adinyira, member. Professor Kwame Kakari, member. Mrs. Charlotte Osei, member. Dr. Godwin Jokoto, member. Mr. Ibrahim Tanko Amidu, member. Dr. Esi Ansa, member. And Dr. Reina Akumperdia, secretary to the committee. May I now invite His Excellency the President to administer the oaths. The President will be administering 2 oaths. The oath
Mr.
of
Speaker,
and the oath of secrecy. Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Good to see my old teacher, Professor Kakari, and my friend Kwesi, my dismissed electoral commissioner, Charlotte, and all of you are very welcome. And so there are going to be 2 oaths. One is the official oath, which you will enter into, and then the second is the oath of secrecy. And so you say after me, I say I, then you insert your name, and then you continue after me. So I, do in the name of the Almighty God, swear that I will at all times well and truly serve the Republic of Ghana in the office of the Constitutional Review Committee, and that I will uphold, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana as by law established. So help me God. And then the oath of secrecy, and it follows the same pattern. You insert your name. So here we go. I, holding the office of member of the Constitutional Review Committee. Prempeh, you say chairman. The others, you say member. Do in the name of the Almighty God swear that I will not directly or indirectly communicate or reveal to any person any matter which shall be brought under my consideration or shall come to my knowledge in the discharge of my official duties, except as may be required for the discharge of my official duties or as may be specially permitted by law. So help me God. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. You may please resume your seat. Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. I'd now like to welcome the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, the Honorable Dominic Ayine, to give us some remarks. Please welcome him.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, the Honorable Chief of Staff, National Chairman of the National Democratic Congress, Legal Counsel to the President and my former boss, Ministers of State present, Members of Parliament, Chairman and members of the Constitution Review Committee, my fellow countrymen and women, good evening. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome you all to the inauguration of the Constitution Review Committee. As the name of the committee suggests, its core duty is to review the Constitution of the Republic. To review something means to take a second look at that thing. That may seem like a simple task for the committee, but there is more to it than meets the eye. Reviewing the Constitution means more than simply taking a second look at the text of the Constitution. For instance, to cite His Excellency's favorite example, Article 71 of the Constitution, and to take account of how the letter and spirit of the Constitution has been put to use in the last 3 decades. That includes reviewing the statutes, regulations, judicial decisions, and public policies that have been designed to give effect to or to enable effect to be given to the provisions of the Constitution. My fellow countrymen and women, to paraphrase an American jurist, Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, the life of the law has never been logic, but experience. Our collective experience over the last 32 years has taught us that certain aspects of the Constitution are not welfare enhancing, and those we must refashion to suit our purposes. The question, however, is, will we get it right this time? That is a question that none of us in this room can answer with mathematical certainty. The good thing is that we have the benefit of the mistakes we've made in the past in our attempts to put the Constitution to use to guide us in the current pursuit. But much as we must take account of the collective experience as a people, we cannot unravel the internal logic of the Constitution as a whole. Mr. President, sometimes, and I really mean this, sometimes I feel like Cassius in Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, when he observes that the fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves, that we are weaklings. At such times, I feel that the fault is not with the Constitution, but with us, because we have not had the strong will to do what it takes to make the Constitution work to enhance public welfare. And why do I say this? To answer this question, Mr. President, I want to provide a little bit of context by quoting extensively from the dictum of SOA CJ in Tufo and Attorney General. In that case, the learned Chief Justice said as follows, quote, "A written constitution such as ours is not an ordinary act of parliament. It embodies the will of the people. It also mirrors their history. Account therefore needs to be taken of it as a landmark in the people's search for progress. It contains within it their aspirations and their hopes for a better and fuller life. The Constitution has its letter of the law. Equally, the Constitution has its spirit. It is the fountainhead of the authority which each of the 3 arms of government possesses and exercises. It is a source of strength. It is a source of power. The executive, the legislature, and the judiciary are created by the Constitution. Their authority is derived from the Constitution. Their sustenance is derived from the Constitution. Its methods of alteration, and this is very important for the committee, its methods of alteration are specified. In our peculiar circumstances, these methods require the involvement of the whole body politic of Ghana. Its language, therefore, must be considered as if it were a living organism capable of growth and development, as the body politic of Ghana itself is capable of growth and development." End of quote. Our collective search for progress, Mr. President, and my fellow countrymen and women, is a continuous process that requires debate, deliberation, and action. It requires a thoughtful application of the letter and spirit of the Constitution to all aspects of our national life. And that, in turn, requires a tenacious effort to breathe light into the Constitution as a living organism through legislative and policy measures that conform to its letter and spirit. As a country, we have been, I must say honestly, to a large extent, derelict in our duty in this respect. To give but one example, Mr. President, the Constitution guarantees the property rights of spouses in Article 22, Clause 1, and provides as follows. In Article 22, Clause 2, Parliament shall, as soon as practicable, after the coming into force of this Constitution, enact legislation regulating the property rights of spouses. It has been 32 years since the coming into force of the Constitution, and we are yet to pass legislation on the property rights of spouses. The nearest we came to fulfilling this obligation was under Mr. President's first term of office, when my boss, the Honorable Marietta Biru, tabled a motion in Parliament in 2016 to regulate the property rights of spouses. However, the bill was shot down due to a single provision relating to cohabitation. The Women's Caucus in Parliament at the time strongly opposed that provision, and they were louder than the voices of all the men put together. There were 20 women, and during the consideration stage, when I even proposed to take out the cohabitation clause, which basically provided that if a man and a woman, it didn't matter whether it was a married man or an unmarried man or a married man, stayed together for 5 years, and presented themselves to the country, to their neighbors as husband and wife, the woman was entitled to inherit, the man's property. Now, the women took this to be an advantage to side chicks, and they shut it down, even though there were just 20 of them. Mr. Chairman and members of the Constitution Review Committee, the President and I have invested a lot of hope in your capabilities, experience, and your commitment to the service of our nation. Mr. President was very specific that he wanted a committee consisting of our compatriots who not only represented our country, but who will inspire confidence in our people. He was also clear in his mind that he did not want a partisan committee. So, you have been carefully selected to do this job for our country. The easiest part of the job is to follow the specified methods of alteration of the Constitution. The toughest, and I can say this without any fear of contradiction, is to recommend substantive provisions to add to or replace the current provisions of the Constitution that will conform with the welfare principle of Article 1, Clause 1 of the Constitution, which provides as follows, quote, "The sovereignty of Ghana resides in the people of Ghana, in whose name and emphasis and for whose welfare the powers of government are to be exercised in the manner and within the limits laid down in this Constitution." I will be working closely with you, Chairman and members of the committee, in the next 6 months to produce a result that is satisfactory to Mr. President and to our countrymen and women. Notwithstanding that, I wish to thank all of you on behalf of the President and the people of Ghana for accepting to do this labor of love, as the chairman described it on social media, for our country. So God bless you all. God bless our homeland, Ghana. May your work make Ghana great and strong. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Attorney General and Minister of Justice, the Honorable Dominic Ayine. It's now my honor to invite His Excellency John Dramani Mahama to give his speech. Please, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon. Distinguished guests, members of the Constitutional Review Committee, Her Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, staff of the Presidency, my fellow Ghanaians. Today we gather for a solemn and hopeful purpose. That's the inauguration of the Constitutional Review Committee. This is not just another event on our national calendar. It is a moment of deep reflection on how far we have come as a nation and a reaffirmation of our collective commitment to shaping a future that truly reflects the aspirations of the Ghanaian people. For over 3 decades, the 1992 Constitution has been the foundation of our democracy. It has guided us through periods of growth and challenge, securing our rights and freedoms while ensuring peaceful transitions of power. It has given us stability, resilience, and hope. Those who framed this document can look back with pride, knowing that their vision has not only endured, but has become the backbone of our nation's progress. And I say kudos to all the ordinary men and women who gathered at that time to produce this document. Resilient, yet as with all living things, our Constitution must evolve. Former Chief Justice Sowa, and I'm taking from the same quote as the AG, in the landmark to 4 vs. Attorney General case, described our Constitution as a living organism, a sentiment that reminds us that the strength of any democracy lies in its ability to adapt. Over the years, we've seen gaps, ambiguities, and challenges that demand attention. The world has changed, and so too must the legal framework that governs us. The call for constitutional reform is not an admission of failure, but an acknowledgement of the progress, a recognition that our democracy must be dynamic, responsive, and ever attuned to the needs of our people. This is not the first time we have sought to refine our Constitution. On this day, we honor the foresight of His Excellency John Evans Atta Mills, who in 2010 established the Constitutional Review Commission, led by Professor Albert Fiajo. The comprehensive work of that commission, along with the efforts of the Constitution Review Implementation Committee, chaired by Professor E.V.O. Dankwa, laid a solid foundation. More recently, in 2023, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo established the Constitution Review Consultative Committee, chaired by Mrs. Clara Beri Kasati, whose findings were submitted last year in December 2024. These initiatives reflect a long-standing national desire to refine our governance structures, and today we must take the next bold step on that journey. The task before you is critical. You're not just reviewing reports and proposing amendments. You're helping to shape the future of our dear nation, Ghana. Your mandate is to carefully examine past recommendations, identify necessary changes, and create a clear roadmap that will finally lead to meaningful constitutional amendments. This process must not become another chapter in the history of unfulfilled reform efforts. It must be a turning point, a moment when Ghana moves decisively from discussion to action. I understand the weight of responsibility that comes with this task, and I assure you that your work will not be in vain. This will not be an exercise in futility. We are determined to see this process through, and I have every confidence in your ability to deliver results that will serve both the present and future generation of Ghanaians. I take great pride in the composition of this committee. You have not been chosen out of political consideration, but for your integrity, expertise, and commitment to Ghana's progress. This exercise is not about any political party. It is about Ghana. It is about ensuring that our Constitution reflects the values, hopes, and dreams of every Ghanaian, regardless of their background or affiliation. Your diverse perspectives will enrich this process, and I urge you to engage widely with citizens from all walks of life in this process. This Constitution must belong to all of us. It must inspire trust, it must unite us, and it must provide a framework for a more just, inclusive, and prosperous Ghana. On behalf of the people of Ghana, I express my profound gratitude to each of you for taking up this national duty, especially at such short notice. Your willingness to serve is a testament of your love for country and your dedication to Ghana's future. We stand at the threshold of a new chapter in our democratic journey. Let us approach it with wisdom, urgency, and a shared commitment to building a Ghana that will continue to stand as a beacon of democracy and hope, not only in Africa, but in the world. I thank you. May God bless our homeland, Ghana, and make our nation great and strong. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We would now invite for his own remarks the Chair of the Committee, Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh. Please.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic, Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic, the Honorable Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Honorable members of the Presidential Staff, fellow members of the Constitutional Review Committee, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the members of the committee and on my own behalf, I would like to convey to you, Mr. President, our most profound gratitude for trusting us enough, individually and collectively, to ask us to shoulder this very awesome burden and responsibility of reviewing and proposing suitable amendments to the 1992 Constitution. Your naming and inauguration of this committee in the very early weeks of your assumption of office as president signals to us, the members of this committee, as well as to the nation, the sincerity and seriousness of your commitment to prosecute to the end the constitutional reform agenda as a critical component of your pledge to reset governance in this, our fourth republic. On our part, my members and I also pledge that we will return the trust with equal sincerity and seriousness, and will pursue our task with the sole aim of bettering the fortunes of our people, setting us on a course of progress and development, and helping you, Mr. President, to fulfill the pledge that you have made. Once again, thank you very much for the trust that you have reposed in us. We commit to work diligently within the next 6 months to produce a report that is fitting and suitable for our country and our dear nation. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and that will bring to an end the speeches. So now we do some photos, and I'd like to invite Your Excellency and all members of the committee to come up to where the flags are, I suppose, for a group photo, please. Yes, please. Thank you very much. We will be taking the national anthem again before the president takes leaves of us, so please remain right. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your company. And the President and Vice President will now take leave, followed by senior government officials. And committee members, you may take photos with your family.
All right. His Excellency, the President, John Dramani Mahama, just sworn in the 8-member Constitution Committee. This committee will be under the chairmanship of H. Prempeh. That's Professor Henry Executive Director of the Ghana Center for Democratic Development in Ghana, while Dr. Reina Pereira is the Secretary. The members of this committee will include Justice Sofia Adingra, Dr. Godwin George, Mrs. Charlotte Osei, Dr. Isi Ansan, Professor Kwame Akani, and Mr. Ibrahim Tanko. Previous constitutional review work done by the 2010 committee. Now, it is also expected to engage with various stakeholders to solicit their views on the proposal for the Constitution Review Commission and the 2023 Constitution Review Consultative Amendment of the 1992.
The system that you were referring to, if you talk about UK, they don't have a term limit. There is no law in the UK saying that when you elect a government into power, it's going to serve from this date to that date. And so the circumstances determine whether they should call for election or not. Our constitution is very specific. Very, very specific. From 7th January to 6th January, that's a 4-year term. That's the end. It's automatic. And so we have to prepare. It's not the period that you use. You cited the US. Yes, they use a period. We also use one. But what should happen? Handing over is not what happens in Sierra Leone. Immediately they announce the results, the president is sworn in. What has he taken over? There must be a process where there's real handing over, peaceful one. You are going to be minister. This is what you are taking over. You can't just go to take over and it's an empty office. You're looking for information and you don't even know where it is. And that was what was happening here. That is why we are trying to pass the Parliament Transition Act, where after a speaker is elected, before you get to the office, the former speaker is nowhere to be found. Then all the staff there, they've left because their tenure has ended. Then you start asking questions. You're looking for the files, you can't trace any file. And it has happened, and it's happening in government. So we need to sit down, and I thought by this time, after this handing over a number of times, we have understood that no party can be in government forever. But yet, we haven't. We haven't, because I'm telling all of you, it's not them. There's no them and us. There's no them and us. We are the same people. And these people are just tools that are being used by some people in political offices. They are tools. They are just doing that for survival. You are the people behind the scene, pushing them there to do what they are doing. Until the political leaders sit down and take control, this is what will continue to happen in the country. We will all be at risk. And I really don't see leadership in many of you because you are being led by the mob. You are afraid of your followers. The leader must lead. You have to listen to your followers, yes. But you take the decision and you hold yourself responsible. You cannot be allowing mob to be pushing you to be doing what is happening in this country. That is not allowed. Then what is leadership about? And it's both ways. It's not just one party. It has happened. And in fact, on some occasions, I've had to weep because of how people I knew were mutilated and killed during transitions. Oh, yes. Yes. Even Jesus Christ wept. And you must know this. I think all of you, you've been quoting the Holy Quran and the Holy Bible. And the lessons are there. The best friend of Jesus Christ was who? Judas Iscariot. Not just Judas. Judas, there are many. Judas Iscariot. Who finally sold Jesus? It's not Judas. So today you sit here and Bob Marley told you that those who eat and drink with you, they will do what? Your best friends will be what? Exactly. Please. They will do what? Crucify him. And it has happened in this country on many occasions. I will want to please urge all of you to read the political history of this country. And you will see and you will learn so many lessons to guide you in your political career. That is if you want to stay long. If you want to be like others, fine, you can continue. National Integrity Award, where annually we will identify people we believe are men and women of integrity and give them sumptuous awards. So that we can motivate people to do what is right, what is good, what is just, to sacrifice for people, to build people, not to build houses. These mansions that you people are building, I don't know whether you carry them into the graves. Please, I can't understand it. So when these young people are so hungry, they are very, very hungry because they've been denied food for 8 years, 4 years, and they see that the one denying them the food is no longer there. What do you think they will do? It's survival of the fittest. And when I saw the incident that the minority leader referred to, oh, it's sad. But we've seen similar ones. But should we encourage it? Should we allow it to go on? Should we keep on decrying the situation? We must find solution to it. So I'm going to charge the leaders. It's not a matter of resolution. No. We have to take this Presidential Transition Act. We are working on ours. We have done a transition here smoothly without you people realizing it. There was a clerk of parliament. Now we are having a new clerk of parliament. It's a transition. Smoothly. And we managed it. He is still active. And we act to the last day, which is 2nd February. That is why the former clerk would have ended his tenure. He's on leave prior to retirement. Then he will now be confirmed as full clerk. Smoothly. And we are doing everything to make sure that he will still have us in mind. And anytime we call on him, he will be here to support the house. We can put these systems and structures in place at the national level. I had to call my former Professor Michael Quay, and that's why many of the times I'm
using regulation in a way that makes the businesses sustainable and does not kill the investments of MNOs in the sector. I thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, a follow-up on this particular one, yes. Ghanaians have had concerns in terms of, again, the cost and the treatment that they receive from the telephony group. You make a call and they tell you the call is out of coverage area, the number you are calling cannot be reached when the person is right in distance with you. When you put all of these together and the cost that one needs to pay for such services, what are you going to do as a minister to assure Ghanaians that whatever cost we incur in these service areas receive the needed benefits of those costs?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Once again, on the issue of voice calls, I think that the real issue with voice calls is not necessarily the cost, if I understand the market. It's what you've just pointed out in your follow-up, the quality of service. That's where consumers and customers have a problem, and that's where we all face the challenge, where we are making calls and the rate of call drops and call failures are extremely high. I agree with you that there is work that needs to be done from the ministry by way of policy through the regulator, the National Communications Authority, to ensure that the KPIs for the MNOs and service providers is enhanced and that we ensure strict adherence to it. If you set the KPIs low, every MNO is going to pass it. But the question is, are we having the real consumer experience that citizens have to have? As Minister Designate, I think no. I think that there's a lot of work that the telcos have to do. Government also has to do some work, because for you to get better quality of experience, you need to allocate more spectrum to the MNOs. So as Minister Designate, if approved by this House and I become the minister, one of the things we'll work with the regulators to do is to make more spectrum available to the MNOs. However, we'll be raising the KPIs and ensuring that the standards are met. And I will not be a minister who will be afraid to impose fines on MNOs who fail to meet the quality of service. Ghanaians deserve the best quality of service. And we would crack the whip where necessary, but we would also support the MNOs to ensure that they get what is needed to provide us the best quality of service. I thank you.
Thank you very much, nominee. My second question, Mr. Chairman, sits around the emerging issue of cybersecurity threat that we face as a country. In Ghana, a couple of our institutions have received cyber attacks, and its consequences on the nation is very dire. When you check the cost of cybersecurity...
Chairman, please, Chairman, I want to draw your attention that this committee, members of this committee originally, we don't have a quorum to continue with this vetting. And I want to bring that to your notice. And I'm raising quorum issues. Chairman, you should be able to establish that we have quorum under Order 64. Then we'll be able to make proceedings. We don't have quorum.
Chairman, with all due respect to the First Deputy Minority Chief Whip, with all due respect to him, this shouldn't happen again. Why? If you want to invoke the rules, please do so properly. Do not interrupt the proceedings in such a disorderly manner. You have failed to invoke the rules properly. This is a committee proceedings that is ongoing. You have not established the number of committee members sitting around the table for which will warrant your interruption in such a manner. With all due respect, let me offer some education. This committee is constituted pursuant to Order 217, Rules 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In accordance with Rule 217.2, there are standing members of the committee pursuant to 2171. There are 11 standing members. Under 2172, subject matter committee leadership are statutorily mandated to be represented on the committee where subject matter minister nominees appear. As we speak, your side has provided 2 names as subject matter leadership committee from the communications committee. The majority side has also provided 2 subject matter honorable names to satisfy the requirement under that provision. Now, if you add these 4 members to the standing members of 11, that is 15. Now, you have not established that as we proceed, a quorum of 15 will give you at least 5. You have not established that even the membership supplied. Please, Chairman, can we have some order around the table? Please. You have failed to establish that even around the table, myself, yours truly, the chairman presiding, plus the 2 members you have supplied, plus 2 from our side, that is 6. Even minus you. And you are not a member of this committee. You are not.
Speaker,
please, with all due respect.
Point of order. I'm a member of this committee.
With all due respect.
Understanding Order 2177.
Yes.
Read Order 2177. I'm a member of this committee.
Please. I haven't called you yet. Please.
But you didn't call him and he's also distracted. So if he's misleading the House, he should read Order 2177. And no, then he should withdraw the fact that I'm not a member of this committee. Because if you read Order 2177,
Chairman,
it states that a member of the leadership of the House is entitled to participate. I'm a leader of the House.
Chairman,
I am entitled to. So I am a member of the committee. So don't say I am not.
Please switch off. Please. Let's try and do this orderly, please. Let's have some order.
Establish that you have quorum. Establish it. The ranking member, the vice ranking, the minority whip, the 1 person we appointed who is in the person of Honorable Patrick Bois, none of them is here. On your side, the chairman is not here. The vice chair who you are presiding now, they are not also here. Establish that you have quorum before you continue.
All right, can you...
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman.
Honorable Roxon, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman.
Please, let's
Chairman.
Can you come in?
Chairman, with all due respect to the Honorable Habib, with all due respect to him, my point is that he's not a statutory member. He's also a member in pursuance of 2177. So if you just walk in, you have not even sat down for more than 2 minutes, and then you jumped in. Now, I have established that this committee is properly constituted for its work. In any case, we are not speaking of a commencement quorum. There's a difference between a commencement quorum and a decision-making quorum. You have not demonstrated the distinction.
Please, Chairman, with all due respect, this is very serious business of state. So the leader should comport himself. And if he wants to come in, okay, I withdraw that.
Chairman,
I withdraw.
Chairman,
It's withdrawn. It's withdrawn.
Please withdraw.
Now you just jumped in to raise an issue of quorum, and I'm saying this is the third nominee that we are listening to, we are interrogating. The point where you could raise a commencement quorum is long past in the morning. We are in progress, we are in flight. When it comes to a decision making, then you could decide, you could raise the issue of quorum that we are about to take a decision as a committee. We are not properly constituted. Now, may I refer you to Article 102 of the Constitution and 104 of the Constitution? And in reading that, marry it with the decision of the Supreme Court in Abdullah versus the Attorney General, that the rules of Parliament are applicable mutatis mutandis to the procedure before a committee's work, and that where the committee has begun proceedings, quorum was established, and the proceedings is ongoing. So you cannot raise the issue of commencement. Now, let me establish this point. Chairman, let me establish this point. Order 2171. The Appointments Committee comprises the First Deputy Speaker as chairperson, Minority Leader as ranking member, the Deputy Majority Leader as Vice Chairperson, the Deputy Minority Leader as Deputy Ranking Member, and the following other members: A, the Majority Chief Whip; B, Minority Chief Whip; C, 5 other members selected based on the numerical strength of the parties in Parliament. So based on 2171, A, B, and C, the standing membership of this committee is 11. Now, based on 2172, the chairperson and ranking member and 2 other members of the relevant subject matter standing or select committee shall join the members of the Appointments Committee to consider persons nominated by the President for appointment as all that. Now, Chairman, with all due respect to the First Deputy Minority Chief Whip, his membership is provided under 2177. And it says, a member of the leadership of the House is entitled to participate in the proceedings of the committee during the consideration of nominees for appointment. So the issue of quorum, and quorum is, and Mr. Chairman, to invoke Order 64. Let me refer the House to Order 64. This agenda to disrupt these proceedings, it won't work. So let me address, Chairman, let me address this matter and we make progress. Now, quorum in Parliament. Quorum in Parliament. Chairman, Order 64.1. A quorum of Parliament, apart from the person presiding, is 1/3 of all the members of Parliament. Now, where the person presiding is a deputy speaker or a member, that person shall be counted as part of the quorum. Now, I agree that the orders will apply to the work of the committee. Without establishing the number around the table, you just said that we don't have a quorum. Meanwhile, as we speak, the standing membership of the committee is 11. And we have myself, we have the vice chairperson, we have the Honorable Ajia represented, we have the Honorable Rita Odole represented, we have the Honorable Mahama Shaibu represented, and we have Honorable Uma. He has just stepped out. We have just stepped out. So this attitude, Chairman, with all due respect, Chairman, let me conclude by saying, let me conclude. Chairman, the honorable member is completely out of order. He's completely out of order. We must make progress with our nominee. I so submit. I thank you for the opportunity.
Okay.
Okay, Honorable Abujinapo, please, let's do this orderly.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, if you allow me, let me congratulate the nominee and to say that I sympathize with him. That he's caught up in this litigation. But indeed, it's his chief whip who is anyway, Mr. Chairman, I want to submit that the application and procedure invoked by the first deputy minority chief whip, is properly grounded, is properly construed, and is properly laid before you, the chairman of this committee. Let me establish two preliminary points. The first one is that the majority, Mr. Chairman, the first one is that the majority. I make is that what the deputy minority chief whip sought to do was to raise an application pursuant to Order 64 of the Standing Orders of Parliament to the chairman of the committee. And Mr. Chairman, when that application is laid, it is only and only when the application is laid before the chairman will the chairman go through the processes and the proceedings pursuant to Order 64 of the Standing Orders to make a determination whether or not this committee, this Appointments Committee of Parliament, is properly constituted and that it has quorum. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I want to quote Order 64. And I quote. Order 64 says,
Mr. Chairman,
a quorum of Parliament, apart from the person presiding, is 1/3 of all the members of Parliament.
Mr. Chairman, order, please.
Where the person presiding is a deputy speaker or a member, part of the quorum.
Please.
3, a member may draw the attention of the person presiding at any time during a sitting that members. Mr. Chairman, can I be listening in silence? We are live on national television. I mean, can we please? Now, look. No, can we? And so, Mr. Chairman.
Honorable, please. Honorable. Honorable member.
He's not a member.
No, he is not. Can you put that thing off? Please. Yeah. Okay. All right. Honorable member, I believe you are done.
Mr. Chairman, no, just a few more minutes.
Yeah.
1 or 2 more points.
Relax.
And so, Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chairman, what is the point I seek to make? Mr. Chairman, the submission I make is that pursuant to Order 64, pursuant to Order 64 of our rules, when a member makes an application to the chairman, and indeed, the majority chief whip himself, and I will always refer to him as the learned majority chief whip, has submitted that the rules of the parliament as a plenary, the parliament as a whole, is applicable to the proceedings of a committee of parliament. And therefore, Order 64 is applicable to this appointments committee. And so what is my conclusion and what is my contention? And of course, Article 102 and Article 101 buttresses this point. Mr. Chairman, and so I'm contending that when the Deputy First Minority Chief Whip made the application to you, the correct and proper procedure pursuant to Order 64, which is Order 64 applicable to the House of Parliament, and which the majority chief whip himself has submitted, applies to the committee of the House, and therefore the committee, the appointments committee. Mr. Chairman, I conclude by saying that you then would have gone through the processes of establishing whether or not this committee is properly constituted and has quorum to conduct business. But as we speak, Mr. Chairman, as we speak, the NDC members of this committee have now all run into the committee. They run here. They rush here. So, Mr. Chairman, on that basis, let me conclude by saying that the first Deputy Minority Chief Whip has withdrawn his application. It was properly grounded, and therefore let us proceed.
Thank you very much. I have, please, let's continue the meeting. Well, we have the commencement quorum, so we'll continue the meeting, and then you are overruled, actually. Can we continue? Yeah, you on the floor. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Before you go on, just to bring to your attention, I was given this piece of paper before we started, and Honorable Abu Jinapo is a subject matter person on this table. So you help us form a quorum.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I was on my second question to the nominee, and that's my second. I hope, okay, so my question was that cyber security has been a national concern, and I was indicating that the country has experienced some couple of cyber attacks. And then when you consider the cost of establishing cyber security in institutions, it is on a very high side. When you look at the NDC manifesto, you talked about enhancing support to cybersecurity establishment and initiatives. I want to know first from the nominee, what is he going to do as a minister to fund cybersecurity initiatives to ensure that the country's systems and networks are adequately protected? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the cybersecurity of our country is a critical one that sits and straddles the Ministry of Communications, Digital Technologies and Innovation, and our national security apparatus. In fact, when you read the National Security Strategy document that was prepared in 2020, I believe that paragraph 3.4 on page 41 speaks about our cybersecurity preparedness as a nation. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, in 2020, we passed Act 1038, which is the Cybersecurity Act. As a member of the committee at the time, I played a key role in the formulation of that legislation. And when you speak about funding cybersecurity, I'm sure that the outgone minister will bear witness, and the members of the committee, that when the bill came to Parliament from Cabinet, it did not have anything about funding cybersecurity. It was my personal intervention and amendments to the bill that introduced Section 23 of the bill, which is the funds of the bill. I would say that it is just sheer providence that 4 years after the bill came into law, the outgone government was unable to operationalize the fund. And I, who brought it into the bill, today sits here as a nominee of the president to superintend this bill. I give you the assurance that the brain and thinking behind me introducing funding for the bill, and if you read it, I identify a number of sources to fund cybersecurity. One of them is grants from the government, another is allocations from government or grants from individual donor agencies like the Mastercard Foundation and Rockefeller Foundation. Another one is actually the establishment of the Cyber Fund, which will be a dedicated fund for beneficiaries of cybersecurity. So I think I just share providence that when approved by this House, and I assume office as Minister for Communications, the thoughts that came through my mind in September 2020, when I introduced this as an amendment, will see the light of day under President John Dramani Mahama. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My last point has to do with the fintech space. It has to do with this fintech space. So you realize that a lot of Ghanaian enterprises or young Ghanaians have built capacity within the fintech industry. Yet when you look at support from donor enterprises like the World Bank, most of their support in these areas are for Ghanaians to buy software, or they buy softwares for Ghanaian companies, which limits the development of our fintech industries. Now, there's also a call from your NDC and during your manifesto that you are going to establish a $50 million fund to support the fintech industry. My question is, how are you going to protect the young Ghanaians who have built up their capacity in this fintech space? How are we going to make sure that they get the needed support and leverage to build their capacities and growth? And also, how is this fund going to be disbursed? Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, as subcommittee chairman for the NDC's Manifesto Drafting Committee on Digital Economy and ICT, we put in place that policy plank with the approval of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama to set up a 50 million fintech fund. The 50 million fintech fund, that 50 million is supposed to be a seed funding that we're going to use to attract funds from other multilateral and bilateral donor agencies. Our target is to build a $300 million fund. That's not going to be disbursed like confetti, but that's going to be used as seed funding to attract major funding from venture capitalists and angel investors. Another thing we're going to be doing to support the fintech industry in Ghana is the setting up of business advisory supports and regulatory sandboxes to ensure that our young startups survive. In fact, the statistics show that most startups die before their 5th anniversary, and that's because most of these startups are started by young innovators who don't have all it takes to run a business. It's one thing being an innovator, is a completely different business running and managing a business enterprise. And so that's where this fund is going to come in, to offer them the business advisory support, to give them what it takes to run a business profitably, whilst the innovative juices of young Ghanaians, the creative minds that God has blessed this country with, will continue to explode. But one last thing we're going to do for the fintechs is that we're going to redefine the entire regulatory framework. As we see today, the President has issued an executive instrument that redesignates the Ministry of Communications to the Ministry for Communications, Digital Technology and Innovation. Fintechs are digital technology. It's because of them. They are at the heart of President Mahama's government, because he wants to have a truly financially inclusive government by the time he's leaving office in 2028. And so we're going to set up an independent subsidiary of the Bank of Ghana, along the lines of the FCA in the UK, and along the lines of GIPS, 100% owned by the Bank of Ghana, but that's going to be agile in its regulatory framework and allow for innovation, things like agri-tech, edu-tech, insurance technology in the fintech space to take off. So this is the golden era for fintechs under the next 4 years of John Dramani Mahama. Mr. Chairman, I thank you.
Any further questions? Or you are done? You've asked your 3 questions. Then I will proceed to give the floor to Honorable Okudzeto. Honorable members, what we do is that we want to exhaust the subject matter committee members first, under Order 2172. And subject matter committee members is 2 from each side. So if you want me to give the floor to another person,
what is your pleasure? You want to go the other side?
Where is the subject matter committee? Honorable Abednego, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And congratulations, Senior. Your appointment does not surprise anybody because you have proven to be very, very, very astute in the communications industry. I wasn't here in the 7th Parliament, but I followed your exploits when you played a leading role in getting the cybersecurity law passed in 2020, Act 1038. There was a question on that, but let me pick your thoughts also on the same subject matter. There is 2 schools of thought. One believes that the Cybersecurity Authority should be under the remit of the national security. Of Communications. You have been with it from its inception. What is your thoughts on these 2 of thoughts?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. In my earlier response, I made reference to the National Security Strategy document of 2020 that recognizes cybersecurity as a key tool. I agree that there's the school of thought that thinks that cybersecurity should not sit, especially the Cybersecurity Authority, should not sit under the Ministry of Communications, but rather under the National Security Ministry. There is some merit to that, but I think that when you look at it holistically, you realize that that will not be the best architecture. When you look at best case situations across the world, like in India, like in Singapore and in Rwanda, you realize that you keep your Cybersecurity Authority under your Ministry for Communications or your ICT ministry, because cybersecurity plays 5 cardinal roles, or has 5 interfaces. There's the public interface, which deals with the citizens. Then there is the international interface, our engagements with multilateral and bilateral stakeholders. You've got the industry interface as well, where you talk about the cybersecurity professionals in the sector. You've got the policy formulation, which is largely what the ministry will lead. And then you've got the security and intelligence interface. So of 5 interfaces, 4 of them are civilian and 1 is security. If you move it under your National Security Ministry, it becomes difficult for you to have the full benefit of the 4 other interfaces, be it policy, be it industry, be it international or public interfaces. What we need to do is to have collaborations between the Ministry of Communications, Digital Technology and Innovation and our national security outfits to ensure that the synergies are built between both institutions. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I will not have further questions because Minister designates, your competence and capabilities is unquestioned. Congratulations once again.
Any further questions? I then move to give the floor to Honorable Okudzeto.
I'm ready.
Honorable former Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, let me congratulate Honorable Sam George for his appointment as the Minister for Communication, and I do so very warmly. Congratulations, Minister. Mr. Nominee, I believe you'll be following the unfolding matter of intense interest to the world, which is a matter I refer to the Chinese AI app company, DeepSeek, which has caused a major upset in the American Silicon Valley industry, which is resulted even in tech company, AI company giants such as NVIDIA losing $600 billion United States dollars of stock. This area has become a major area, artificial intelligence, and how other countries are leveraging on them to bring about progress and development. If you are recommended by this committee to Parliament and the Parliament were to approve you and you become the Minister for Communications, what plans or what is your thinking on how Ghana itself can tap into or can plug into this artificial intelligence industry to bring about development in our country? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I saw a quote the other day that said AI in 2025 is like Bitcoin in 2013. Jump on the bandwagon now or you get left out. President Mahama has a clear vision on his AI policy. We're going to take the current AI strategy that was developed by the previous government, review it, make it fit for purpose by engaging industry and ensuring that Ghana becomes the hub for artificial intelligence on the African continent. We're going to do this by making sure that our innovation hubs, as promised in our manifesto, are executed, and then we will introduce AI on top of big data that we are taking. Ghana will become the center and the hub for artificial intelligence, machine learning, cybersecurity,